Hello and welcome to FFS Friday Facebook sessions. It is Hannah and Dally with you again. No rah-rah. She's having a bit of an afternoon off and deservedly so. So we are going to bring you 5 top tips to choose a digital marketing agency that works for you. And we're going to keep it brief, aren't we, Dally? Because I also want to take the afternoon off.
Yeah, we're going to keep it brief. Absolutely.
So, Dally, introduce yourself, please. What's your name and where'd you come from?
My name is Simon Daly. Everyone calls me Daly. I'm a growth traffic director. I'm from Exton near Chorley originally. Now I live in sunny old Bacup. Well, it's sunny right now. It's normally quite rainy, but that's okay too.
Yeah, it's just gone dazzling where I am in the kitchen. I feel like I'm about to be taken up to heaven or possibly blinded. So it's like I'm just going to squint my way through this. My name's Hannah. I'm also a director of Grow Traffic. I am in Sheffield, where it is a lovely, sunny, windy, blowy, rainy day. So, Dally, we are, as you know, a digital marketing agency, a multi-award-winning digital marketing agency. And frankly, I think it's a bloody cheat that anybody should be considering using any other digital marketing agency when they've got us. But if you were to choose a digital marketing agency, and I'm going to say digital marketing agency 1,000 more times, what would be the first thing that you would do in order to kind of go out to market and find an agency that you like?
Well, I suppose the first thing that I would do would be a step before that. So I'd be thinking about understanding what I need, what the requirement of the business is, the objectives. I try and understand the potential marketing budget that I have to spend with a digital marketing agency, which might tell me that I actually probably don't want to go to an agency. I might want to go to just a freelancer, or maybe I've got to do it myself. But there's going to be a number of things that come before that. But once I've kind of figured out where I'm up to there, making sure that all the colleagues that I've got in the business are on board with me actually going out to an agency, I'd then probably start doing a bit of the search. I'd start on Google, hopefully. And maybe I'd ask around to people.
I would start with asking around. That's really interesting. Like, obviously, like you and I and Rachel and Bertie, we're big networkers. We love our networking. We're out. I've just come back from a one-to-one. We're always out and about flogging our wares around the local areas. So I would usually go to my network first.
I always go to Google. I very rarely kind of saying that though. I mean, we're talking about digital marketing agency, aren't we? And I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm the only digital marketing agency in the room at most of those networking events. So maybe I'd probably know somebody. So yeah, it would probably be different. Actually, thinking about the people that I'm kind of working with at the moment, they're all from my networking groups.
Yeah, I mean, this has turned into a stream of consciousness. Just to clarify for you, you're not looking for a digital marketing agency. You are a digital marketing agency.
Right, give me a minute. Just let me reset. I'm a business owner.
Right, I'll talk and give you a break.
How would you do it?
Well, I think you make a really good point that the first thing I would do is at least sketch out some objectives, because we get people coming to us and saying, I want more business. Like, of course you do. Everybody does. That's great. That's like saying, I want a happy life. Everybody wants that. But what does that actually look like for you? Who are the businesses that you're trying to attract, or the customers that you're trying to attract? How many? And what channels have worked for you in the past? What channels do you think are going to work for you now? Your sector. Make some assumptions about where you think your customers are going to come from, and then find a digital agency that kind of works within that remit. But then you're going out to market with a clear idea of what it is that you want to achieve. And then when you do start having those conversations with people, it's a lot easier. I would say, if we move on to tips, my top tip for finding an agency is pick someone that you like. Pick an account manager, a business owner, even a freelancer, perhaps. that you actually get on with, that you have an affinity with, because you are going to be spending a lot of time with, like, talking to them perhaps in the first few weeks. You need to be able to make yourself understood and understand them, and it's a lot easier if you have an affinity with them.
Yeah, I think that quite often, I think we've learned this a few times since the pandemic. When business slowed down and we were just kind of rebuilding, we worked with anyone and everyone really. We had lots of different, and some of them we kind of knew this isn't going to work out because there's something not quite right in terms of personalities. So it's really important that you kind of scope people out. And also, when you start talking to agencies, you've got to understand who you're going to be working with, because you can build a great rapport with the salesperson or with the owner of an agency or whoever that might be, but you're probably not going to work with that person on a day-to-day basis. You'll often work with an account manager or somebody that's a bit more junior on a regular basis. So you want to make sure that you're finding out who you're going to work with.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I think, as with, I mean, we always use this word and it's such a cliche, but authenticity, be authentic yourself when you're talking to agencies and telling them what you want. Because if you're not so corporate yourself and you're standing in front of some very corporate people and you feel like you need to march to the beat of their drum, then it's not going to be a cohesive relationship. And similarly, if you expect that level of professionalism and kind of corporate way of working, and you're standing in front of someone like us who's the absolute opposite, and you're not being authentic about that, then it's not going to be a fruitful relationship, and you do really need to get on with them. Which leads us on to the next point, which is make sure that your values align. So Dali, do you want to just explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I think you can think about values from a kind of a purely purpose and a kind of mission perspective of values. But there's also we always talk about honesty, trust, and transparency as being our core values. And
no, we don't. We talk about honesty, integrity, and transparency.
What did I say?
Honesty, trust, and transparency.
Oh, right, okay. As soon as I open my mouth, it's always worrying because I don't quite know what's going to come out.
Anyway, well, the values that we live and breathe.
All those things. And we talk about the big one really is talking about ourselves as being the antidote to SEO agencies, which kind of sums all those things up, because SEO agencies have a really bad name. They've got a bad name in the digital marketing agency kind of industry, and they have a bad reputation with business owners. So people are rightly perhaps wary of speaking to people about SEO, and we have got a set of values that and a kind of culture that helps us overcome that and make sure that we genuinely are authentically delivering on that grounds. But that's not just our values. Those are our kind of overarching values. You can also think about things like we're not the most professional group of people in the world. We're not going to turn up suited and booted. You might find that we work on a project at 1 o'clock in the morning and you're getting emails at 1 in the morning, and that's okay, because part of our culture is to enable people to work whenever they want to. We've worked with people before where they've said, like, it really worries me that we're getting like emails from you at 10 o'clock at night or 2 in the morning. What's going on? Why is this happening? And they find it unprofessional. Also, things like we quite often will post content to people's websites without it being checked by a marketing manager. That's part of our process. For a lot of businesses, that's fine. But a lot of kind of older school marketing departments would find that to be unprofessional. It's just the way we work, and it's part of that's part of the values that we've built as well as a business.
And some people will love that and some people won't. And so
exactly.
you know, when you're going out to market looking for a marketing agency that you can really get on board with and that you know will be out there representing your business, you need to make sure that you're kind of having these conversations with them and saying, you know, what are your values? But because anyone can say, oh, you know, I act with integrity and I'm transparent and I'm honest, because no one's going to stand there and say, don't trust the fucking word I say, because I can't lie straight in bed. So like you, but you need to be saying like, how do you demonstrate that? How demonstrable are those values? Can you give me an example? And like, what will it be like working with you day to day? Or, you know, what can I expect from you throughout the month of kind of retained operations? So, you know, it is super important that you kind of get off on the right foot and get someone that not only you like, but you can work with professionally.
One of the things, like a good example of this. So I first of all, I always judge somebody who turns up in a suit. I'm always a little bit more cautious of somebody from a digital agency that turns up suited and booted.
Why is that? Because you think they don't know what they're doing?
Because it in some ways, it's like putting on a uniform, and it changes the mindset. And if you want somebody to be creative, you kind of want them to think a bit differently. And
yeah,
I don't want my creative digital marketing agency that I'm paying more than I'd pay just a freelancer to want to be perceived as the same as a banker or an insurance professional, for example.
it's really interesting. So, I mean, I'm sure I've told this before on these lives, and I'm sure everybody watches them all from beginning to end in order. But when I used to recruit developers, like the more slovenly a developer attended the interview, the better the developer, because they had nothing to prove. Like the developers that turned up in suits, you wouldn't, you know, you'd barely let them in the door. The developers that turned up in like, you know, stained t-shirts and joggers and trainers that were battered to shit, they were the good ones because they knew the worth and they didn't need to kind of put on the uniform and put on the airs and graces and stuff.
Yeah.
And when Rachel and I sat down on that fateful summer's day and said, right, what do we want Grow Traffic to be, when we were kind of, you know, playing at it really, and we said we want to be the antidote to the men that turn up in the shiny blue suits and the pointy brown shoes. We want to be the absolute opposite of that, because that's, you know, for all the reasons you've just said. So yeah, I will never, you know, I'll never not wear a cardigan.
I've got one other tip, actually. This is possibly a good way to kind of work out whether they're the right agency for you. Find out what their commitment is to working kind of at different times of the day. So we, for example, have WhatsApp groups with most of our clients, which means that if anything goes wrong, or if they are desperately anxious about something out of hours, it's then on us. We can decide whether or not we're going to respond to it. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, depending on the urgency and importance of it. But a lot of businesses wouldn't have that kind of facility. So if you want that, if you feel that you're going to need that, ask that question.
Yeah, having said that, don't be fucking texting me at 7 p.m. on a Friday.
That's they all text me, don't they?
Pardon?
They all text me because they know you won't respond.
Yeah, it's a really good point. So number 3, so tip number 1 was make sure you pick an agency that you like. Tip number 2 was not only pick an agency that you like, but one with whom your values align and you appreciate their values. Tip number 3 is make sure that you pick an agency that's got the right set of services for you, and that you understand what their services are. So Dali, just explain that for me.
So first of all, this goes back to the kind of pre-point we made about understanding your own objectives and what you actually want to get from a digital marketing agency. There are, I mean, if you were to try and name every kind of different types of marketing activities that there possibly could be, you'd be here all day. So if you go into an agency, you'll tend to find that they specialize in a core range of services. For example, Grow Traffic is primarily a search marketing oriented business that does SEO, copywriting that's related to SEO, content creation, content marketing, pay-per-click. And then on top of that, our kind of additional services include social media, email marketing, link building offsite, but it's all geared towards getting traffic back to our website. And it's important to understand that. So we're not necessarily a marketing agency that's going to go out there and create a huge buzz about your brand. We're not the type of agency that does huge awareness campaigns, for example. It's not what we do. We drive people back to a website. If you're looking for a company that does big awareness campaigns, then perhaps you need to go and find a PR agency or a digital marketing agency that specializes in seeding ideas on the internet, for example. So it's slightly different than what we do. It depends on your objective. And just so you really need to understand what an agency does. And the only way you can do that is by starting to get into explaining your objectives with them and then finding out what their solution to giving you that would be. And then you can see how well it aligns.
Definitely. And I think like that goes back to what we were saying right at the very beginning, where we were saying like make sure that you kind of have a rough idea of what you want to get out of it and get some objectives set down. So if you really want to, have a beautiful looking Instagram campaign that goes out and like you kind of optics around that are really crucial, then an SEO agency or a digital agency that specializes in SEO is not for you. You want a design agency. And similarly, if you want to be hitting the top of Google on most of your keywords, then a design focused agency is not for you. You need an SEO agency. So yeah, like every agency has got its own kind of angle. And if an agency is saying, oh, we do everything, then I would be cautioning against that.
I've got a good example of this from something that happened kind of about 6-8 months ago with a client. We're doing some, built website. We started to do SEO for them, creating an Instagram campaign for them and starting to work on that. And they kept coming back with this kind of, they weren't happy with the content that we were putting out. They couldn't quite get across to us what they weren't happy about it. And what it turned out is that every day the owner of the business was going on and looking at the Instagram wall, and he was looking at the posts and how they looked together on the wall, rather than looking at the posts individually, as we were doing, because we were pushing out, different posts, different messages. And it really became apparent that what was important for him was the aesthetic of what his profile page looked like, which is totally different to what we plan to do and what we'd hoped to do. So there's probably a bit of a misalignment in terms of what he wanted, what we normally do. But after you find those things out, you can start to make changes.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, really, when you're trying to pick a digital marketing agency, make sure that you like them, that your values align, and that you really understand kind of what the services are that they're offering and the impact that that's going to have on your business, and how you generate leads. So number 4 is like our 4th top tip for finding a digital marketing agency that you can work with is get feedback / referrals, or what's the other word? Like what's the word when you get a job and you a reference? Get some references from people. So there's no harm in saying a good agency will kind of have plenty of case studies that you can have a look at, some statistics they can chuck at you, and explain what that means, and really kind of explain it, and not just say, oh, we got the CTR down 40%. Like, what the fuck does that mean? So, and also like a good agency, there shouldn't be anything to hide. They should be able to point at some really good clients that they've worked with and say, yeah, have a chat with this person. They'll tell you what it's like to work with us. And that will help you find an agency that you can really get on with. Yeah. Anything to add on that?
I think that there's always benefit from understanding kind of word of mouth. What you were talking before about, you go out to your network. So there is always a benefit from speaking to other people, because you would hope that they wouldn't recommend somebody that, they think there's a misalignment somewhere. They wouldn't even suggest them to you, hopefully. at that point. But also think about things like reviews. Start looking
Mm.
around, get them to share those case studies, speak to their other clients. You can always do that. If they give you a case study of a client, ring them up, just ask the question.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like a reference. What a great idea. Yeah.
Is that what you suggested earlier?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Smash the patriarchy. Yeah, exactly. So, like a good agency, they shouldn't have anything to hide. And the same with freelancers, really. But it's perfectly okay for you to say, can you give me an example of how this has worked in the past? And really figure out that they're right for you, because potentially you're going to spend a lot of money with them and they're going to kind of make or break your business, and a good agency you'll partner with for a decent amount of time. So you want them to be the right people, just like as if you were interviewing for a job,
Yeah.
for a role in your business. It's a similar sort of process. You kind of, feeling each other out, not literally, because then you'd end up in a tribunal, and just making sure that you kind of, get on with them and you can trust them and they're going to do what they say they're going to do.
Yeah. If you bring on an agency, you need to be thinking in terms of years of working with them.
Yeah.
That's the reality of what your relationship's going to be like. It's going to be at least a year, probably more like 3. Something like that. So you've got to be comfortable with that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. So maybe like go about it as if you were bringing on an employee, and how would you kind of go about that? And then lastly, we kind of rummed and hard about this one as a tip, but we decided in the end, keep the pool small. So you don't want to be having to pick from like 10 agencies, because you'll never make a decision. Just like if you were taking people to interview, you wouldn't interview 10 people for one role within your company, because there's too many. You really need to kind of cut that down. What do you think is the optimum number of agencies to have a little chat with, Dali? Just grow traffic.
Yeah, just grow traffic. No, I mean, when I've brought agencies in the past, I've always gone with 3. But honestly, I'd probably say 2. 2 to 3 is what I'd go with. I'd go with 2 personally. I'd try and find 2 agencies that are slightly different in terms of what I perceive their scale to be, just so I can get a difference, in terms of pricing and things like that. Just make sure I'm on the right page.
Yeah. Yeah, I would. And like you can tell a lot about a business from the tone of voice that they use on their website, and the way that their website's kind of designed, and whether they're corporate, whether they're personable. You can kind of get a lot from that. So yeah, just for your own sanity, I wouldn't be talking to tens of agencies, just because, God, you'll lose the will to live.
Yeah. We had a client. We had not a prospect, should I say, not a client that didn't convert, and they went to market. They got quite a few agencies to quote to them, but they approached very different agencies, and they all came back with different ideas. And you could tell this each time we spoke to them. They were saying, "Well, we've spoken to somebody else who suggested we do this. Yeah, we think we want to do this." But then the next time they'd be like, "We spoke to somebody else who suggested we do this." And that's great if you've got an unlimited budget, but most businesses don't. So again, about understanding objectives before you go out and speak to loads of different people. Make sure you understand what you want from them.
Yeah, I think it's like you can get paralyzed by choice, can't you? Like, I really fucking miss Blockbuster Video, because I could pick a film in Blockbuster in about 10 minutes, but I spend hours going through Netflix looking for films. So, and it's the same with agencies. Like, don't paralyze yourself with choice, and just come direct to us, because we're the best. Okay, so that's it. 5 top tips for choosing a digital marketing agency. Number 1, pick someone that you like, that you got a bit of an affinity with. Number 2, pick someone that lives by the values, shares your values. Number 3, make sure they've got the right services for you, and they've got the right specialism for you, and they kind of can help you achieve your objectives. Don't end up picking the wrong kind of agency by accident, because everyone's got their own specialty. Number 4, get some feedback from other clients, get some references, go with personal recommendations, some referrals. And number 5, don't paralyze yourself through choice. Make sure that you keep your pool 2 or 3 agencies that you're picking from. And obviously number 6, just call, grow traffic. So that's it. 5 top ways to choose a digital marketing agency. We've done it in under half an hour. Yes, well done, Dali. Thank you very much for watching. We'll stick this on our YouTube channel. So if you've missed it and you want to get the amazing quality content, or if you want to kind of, I don't know, watch it again, then you can watch this and all of our other FFS sessions on our YouTube channel, which is obviously just under Grow Traffic. You can have a look on our website. There's a load of content on there. You can
find the podcast.
Find the podcast where you listen to your normal podcasts. You can have Yub interrupting you throughout it all. Yub's trying to say, go on the YouTube channel. That's what he's saying. And so, yeah, that's it.
Have an Irish accent.
Thank you very, very much for watching.
Thank you.
In a fortnight when we're going to be delving deeper into AI generated images. Uncanny Valley, or it's the future?
It is the future.
It's Uncanny Valley. It's weird. All right.
I'm excited.
Wave now. Goodbye. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Come again.
Goodbye.